Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kobina, and in this quick tutorial, we are going to learn how to host a static website on AWS using S3, and then we're going to proceed to front it using CloudFront, which is a content delivery network. So when end users want to access our application, what will happen is they will be able to access it securely through CloudFront, and CloudFront doesn't just provide a secure access; it also reduces latency when it gets to you as trying to access the web application. We'll end the tutorial by quickly setting up a simple CI/CD process using GitHub Action. That will prevent us from manually uploading our changes to S3. Let's jump right into it. So now I'll log into AWS account and I'm going to create my S3 bucket for hosting the application. Come to S3 and then I'll simply create a bucket. I'm going to call it my demo website -UI app -Kobina. Please always ensure the name of your bucket is unique. You can't use the same name. S3 bucket always has to be globally unique. For this tutorial, I'm going to block public access as we saw in architecture diagram. We want people to be able to access our website securely and only through our CloudFront URL. So I'm going to proceed to create my S3 bucket. And now that I have my bucket, I'll open my bucket. So now I'm going to proceed to enable static web hosting for this S3 bucket. So I'll come to properties and I'll scroll to the very bottom to where we have static web hosting and I'll click on edit. Enable. So with this slide configuration, first we are required to indicate our default home page. So if you access any web application, right, the default or the landing page you see is your home page or sometimes referred to as default page. So we are going to call ours index.html. For the error document, for now, I'm going to leave it as optional empty. And then I'll click on Save Changes. So now we've enabled static web hosting for our website. So if I come down here, what you see is you have this in here. That is, you've configured your bucket as a website, and then you can see the URL. If you try accessing our website through this URL, we will get an access denied error. We are getting this mainly because we did not enable public access to our buckets. So now that we've enabled static web hosting, we are going to proceed to upload our index.html file into our S3 bucket. For the purpose of this demo, I have a simple index.html file on my local, which is this, that we are going to upload into the S3 bucket, and then we will later on configure it and make changes to it. I'll do all to provide you access to this in a GitHub repo. So in S3, I'm going to click on upload, add files, then I will look for my index.html file. So once I click on upload, it will upload the index.html components in our S3 bucket. Alright. Now the next thing is for us to configure our CloudFront distribution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for CloudFront. Then I'll open it in a new browser tab. So first, I'm going to create an origin access control. So basically, what this does is, because we want to securely access our website only through our CloudFront URL, we want to restrict any other access. So I'm going to create an origin access control in here. I'm going to call it my static website access. Then I'll leave everything as default and then I'll create it. So now there you have it. Now the next thing is I'll come to distribution and I'll create my distribution. So I'll click on create distribution And then at this point, I'm going to choose the domain. So what I'm going to look for is I'm going to search for the S3 bucket we created, which is my demo website UI bucket. I'll leave everything as it is. And then under this section, I'm going to select origin access control settings. That is the recommended way of doing stuff. And under this, I'm going to choose the access control we created initially. And from here, I'll simply scroll down. Under this section where you have web access control firewall, for this project, we are not going to use WAF, so you are going to disable it. And then for default root objects, although being the optional parameter, we are going to pass in index.html. So basically what this means is when anyone accesses our CloudFront URL, we want them to be taken to this default page directly. So I'm going to click on create distribution. Good. So as our distribution is being created, what I'm going to do is now, because we want people to be able to access our website only securely through our CloudFront URL, we will have to copy this new bucket policy, and then we will go and update it in our S3. So there are two ways of doing that. You can either copy it from here and click on this link, or you can come to S3 bucket and then come to permissions, and then you come to bucket policy. So I'm going to do it this way. Click on edit, and now I'll paste the bucket policy that was generated for me automatically. So basically all that this is doing is it's telling you that we want to perform a get object operation, right? And then the principal is it should be CloudFront, and then we want to restrict it to only our CloudFront distribution, the one that we created. So that's pretty much it and what this is doing. So I'll proceed to save changes. And once I save changes, what this means is now only people coming in from this distribution domain can access our web application. So if everything is fine, let me refresh this page. If everything is fine and then our stuff is deployed successfully, we should be able to access our application. I can still see deploying, so let's wait for some few minutes for it to get deployed. And then we can test our web application. Alright, so there we have it. Now our distribution has deployed successfully. So I'm going to copy my distribution domain and then try accessing the web application he uploaded. Good. So there we have it. Now we can securely access our website that was hosted on S3, and that's the only way through which anyone can access our web application. As you can see here, if I try accessing it directly using the S3 URL, I still get access denied, but I'm able to access it through our CloudFront distribution domain. So now we are going to make a quick changes to our website and then upload it again to see what is happening. So I'll come back to this web application. Then under this section where we have the header deployed to, I'm going to do test 1. I'll save it, and then now I'll come back to my S3 and I'll upload that into the S3 bucket, the updated website. So come in here, click on upload, add files, and I'll select my file again, and then I'll upload it. So now that I've uploaded it into a S3 bucket, I'm going to try and access it through the URL to see what is happening. So you see, I still get the older version of this. So CloudFront being a CDN, it also performs a function of caching the solution, and then when people try accessing your website each time, it doesn't necessarily go back into your S3 bucket. So what we are going to do is we are going to invalidate that and then ask CloudFront to pick the latest version of what is in our S3 bucket. So I'll come in here and then I'll create invalidation. So I'll do /* and then I'll create this. So basically all that this is going to do is it's going to invalidate whatever CloudFront has cached at this very point, and then it will require CloudFront to pick the latest in the S3 bucket. In the next stage of this project, you are going to learn how to automate all these things. This is why the CI/CD process is very, very important. So now that the invalidation is complete, let me come here and then click on this. And as you can see now, we can see the changes we made to our bucket. So the test one is in here. So in the next phase of the tutorial, what you are going to do is you are going to learn how to connect it using GitHub and then GitHub Actions to automate this whole process. So now we are going to continue to integrate our GitHub Actions, that's our simple CI/CD process, to avoid all this manual upload and manual processes. So what I'm going to do is, on my AWS console, I'm going to search for IAM, and then what we are going to do is to create a user for our GitHub repo. So under users, I'm going to create a user. I'm going to call this user GitHub S3 CloudFront deployer. Then I'll click on next. So under permissions, I'm going to attach a permission that we're going to create ourselves. So I'm going to create a policy so that we can restrict our GitHub to do only the things we want it to do. So under services, I'm going to select S3. And then the S3 permissions we require first is we want to be able to do put object, that is allow our GitHub repo to put our updated code from our local into our S3 bucket. The next thing will be I want to be able to list the bucket. Also, I want to be able to perform a delete object operation. That is so that if we make changes to any file, if we remove any file from our front-end component, we should be able to delete it also through the same process. And then finally, I want to do a get object. All right, so these are the 4 S3 permissions we require for now. For resources, for the purpose of this screen demo, I'm going to select all. I'm not going to specify any specific bucket. So I want to do a *. And then the next component will be CloudFront. So as we realized, we manually have to invalidate the CloudFronts. And for this tutorial, I'm going to learn how to do that automatically using GitHub Actions. So I'll have to give the GitHub the permissions to do that. So what we are going to look for is, let me search for create invalidation, and that's all we need. I'm going to give the resource a *. Click on next. So the policy name, I'm going to call it GitHub S3 CloudFront policy. So this is the policy name. So now I'll proceed to create my policy, and then I'll come back to where I was creating my user and then refresh so that I'll be able to get that. So I'm going to search for the policy I just created. There we have it, and then we have the permissions we need. I'm going to select that and associate that with the user that we are creating for our GitHub. Click on next, and then I'll proceed to create my user. So as you can see, we have GitHub S3 CloudFront deployer. Now come into that user, and then what I'm going to do is to generate our security credentials that we can proceed to pass on to GitHub. So under security credentials, I'll just click on create access key. In this case, I'm going to select just other, next. Then I'll do it for just a simple description, GitHub access. So there we have it. Now you have our access key and our security access key to securely integrate this with our GitHub. So I'm going to download this CSV file. And then now I'll quickly move to my GitHub repo. So now I'm going to create a new repo for this project. Come to repository in GitHub. Create new. And I'm going to call it my static website tutorial. Alright, so I'm going to leave it as public for now. And I'm going to add a README file and then I'll proceed to create my repository. Now that we've created our repository, what I'm going to do is to proceed to add our AWS credential we generated as secrets to the repo, so that through that our GitHub will be able to access our AWS account and then do the necessary deployments we want it to do. So in my repo, I'll click on settings. And now under settings, I will scroll down to where you have secret and variable. Click on actions and I'll add new repository secrets. So I'm going to add the secrets that we created to this account. So the first one I'm going to add is the access key. So if I come in here, I'm going to copy the access key we generated. If you don't have access to this page, you can still open the CSV file you downloaded. Then I'll paste it. I'll now proceed to add my new secret, which is going to be the secret access key ID. So I'm going to call that, then copy my secret. The next one that I'm going to add is going to be my AWS region. For this tutorial, I was using US East 1. If you're using a different region, please do what to make the change and then effect that. Then I'll add my next secret, which is going to be the S3 bucket name. That is our S website bucket. So I'm going to copy this name and then paste it in here and add it as a secret. Then the last one is going to be our CloudFront distribution ID. So if you come to CloudFront, you will see your distribution ID. You just copy it and then I'll paste it in here. So now you've passed the necessary secrets and credentials our GitHub repo requires to access our AWS account. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clone this repo to my local. This GitHub repo to my local. So under this section, so this is the code we're working with. I'm just going to open a new GitHub, VS Code window. And then I'll open the new folder in there and then clone it. So I'm going to do open. Under my downloads, I'm going to create a folder called say tutorial. And then I'm going to open this then. And once I open this, I'm going to open my terminal and then I'll clone my project. I already have my GitHub configured for my VS Code environment. So I don't have to do any GitHub configuration. I can just proceed to clone it. If you don't have GitHub, just quickly do that and then you'll be good to be able to clone it. So now this is my repo. I'm going to clone it to my folder. And there you have it, my static website tutorial. The GitHub repo you have, and then the README file in there. to just keep things slightly organized, I'm going to proceed to just open this folder directly, and then we can access just that. So now I'm in my GitHub folder. If you look at the README file, it's the same as we have on GitHub, right? So this is it. So what I'm going to do now is, inside this, I'm going to organize some few folder structures. I'm going to add my front end, a folder called front end, and then index. I'm going to have my index.html, right? The code we started by uploading it into our S3 bucket. I think I have that code open somewhere here. I'm quickly going to grab this, and then I'll paste it in this folder. So as you can see, we have our GitHub test1 and everything. So now, to configure GitHub to be able to deploy it, you are going to create a GitHub workflow. So in order to do that, I'm going to create another folder and then have it called .github. Please follow the same naming convention if you want it to work. Then inside that, I'll have another folder called workflows. And now inside these workflows, I'll have a file called deploy.yaml. So this is where we're going to have our configuration to show our deployment. So this is just a simple YAML code. I already have the code, so I'm going to paste it and then walk you guys through. So basically what that is doing is, you are saying if anyone pushes to our repository, right, the main branch, we want these things to happen. The first thing is we are configuring AWS credentials, and these are the credentials that we set as the secret in there. So if you can see the access key, the secret access key, the AWS region, the bucket name, the CloudFront distribution ID. So what that we are doing is we are setting those values, credentials, and then we are performing an AWS CLI command to copy all the files in this folder. In our case, it's just an index.html file into our S3 bucket. And after that, you want to perform some delete stuff or things like that. And then after everything, we want to invalidate our CloudFront cache by running this CloudFront command, right? So that's pretty much all that we are doing in here. So if everything is configured rightly, now if I come to this page, I'm going to make it GitHub Actions and then do GitHub Actions as GitHub test1. Let me do initial GitHub test so that you will see the changes. So if everything is working fine, let me open my terminal and then make a push to my GitHub repo. So I'm going to do git add git commit -m. Then I'm going to do testing GitHub Actions. So if our permissions and everything is right, if we make a push of this thing to our code base, everything should happen. So now let me come to my GitHub. So let me refresh and see if my code push happened successfully. There you see it. You can see all the necessary changes. And then if I come to actions, you will see that GitHub action has created a workflow and then it's trying to deploy it. So probably because this is the first, it might take some few seconds. Yes, it has deployed successfully. So if I come to my CloudFront distribution and I copy this and I open, you will see the initial test. So now I was able to make changes to my code base from my local directly without having to come into my S3 to upload, to manually come into CloudFront to reassess the distribution. So you are going to test it one last time and then see how it goes. So this is it, right? Now I'm going to make it final test. Save it. do git add, git commit, do final demo. Guys, if you like the tutorial, kindly feel free to like the video and also subscribe to the channel, as I'll do all to provide you guys with more valuable AWS content. So I'll do git push. So now let me come back to my GitHub and see the latest push I just did. So you see final demo, the workflow is deploying. And if it's successful, if I come in here, everything should work fine. So there we have it, our final test. So you can see now when we make the changes and we push, everything is working fine. So this is how you can easily implement a simple CD process for the whole, with GitHub Action for your whole project and all that. If you enjoyed the video, please do also subscribe and then leave in the comment below if you have any specific projects, AWS projects you want me to work on. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.